Yeah, we're live. Hi, guys.
What What do you want to be when you grow up? With ease, expertise, and great value. Know how to grow with Uni Super.
I got a Machado knife, and what followed was an absolute fiasco. So I almost made the dumbest mistake of my life.
History lesson, I just glossed through it, but here I'm able to.
Okay, now the chat.
Here and there, I will give some topics that relate to ancient history, ancient kingdoms that you have heard about before. There's a book from Paul Cooper. Yeah, he has a huge YouTube channel. It's called Fall of Civilizations. Fall of Civilization.
Diane, am I an hour earlier or an hour later? Because they changed the clocks last night and I get confused. Hi, by the way.
So he talks about many different famous kingdoms that you've heard about, such as the Mayan kingdom. He also talks about Assyria. He talks about Babylon. He talks about Roman Britain. He talks about, I think, Carthage and many other famous kingdoms that you've heard about before. Obviously, people are very interested in that, so then they buy his books. You may have heard me discuss some of that in the intermediate.
Diane, am I on an hour earlier or an hour later? Because they turn back the clocks here and I get confused. It's only just gone 10 o'clock here.
Discipleship course about different kingdoms and then how the sons of God interacted with that, as well as biblical characters. In this teaching, what I'm going to do is give you more specifics, more interesting details, because an intermediate discipleship world history lesson, I just glossed through it. But here I'm able to specify it more and then give you more interesting verses. I'm going to talk to you about the ancient Greeks. You've heard many of their famous stories about the labyrinth and also Hercules, Cyclops, many ancient stories with Greece.
Diane, we just had our superannuation raided by crooks like that, cyber crooks. They've stolen millions of dollars.
When you read about Greek mythology, there's so much that we can see that they took from the Bible, as well as especially Genesis 6. Now, if you recall, back at Genesis chapter 6, the fallen angels, they abode on the earth and then they intermingled with mankind. If you read Greek mythology, as well as other legends during ancient times, they do discuss about deities or gods who commingled with humans. They also talk about a worldwide catastrophe, a disastrous flood that drowned out everything. That's obviously from the Bible in Genesis chapter 6, 7, and 8, where God was not pleased with mankind commingling with the sons of God and their offspring, and then he drowned them all out. There are many people who are interested in the topic, and Bible believers have wondered, how did the sons of God survive? Well, you have heard me teach to you in the Genesis class and in other classes how those sons of God and their offspring survived. Now, the first thing is when we go to Genesis chapter 7. Genesis chapter 7. The Bible is very careful to note that those that were living on the earth died, every living, breathing thing. But let's start from a point where nearly all Christians can agree who believe in Noah's flood. Christians agree that does not include aquatic life, correct? Otherwise, it's hard to believe Noah had an aquarium inside his ark.
And that's how the Nephilim could have survived the flood. The mermaids, they're Nephilim daughters. They could have survived the flood. And that's how they come back.
We know that sea creatures, aquatic life, survive. So there's the first exception there. The first exception is if you can go in the water. When you go in the waters, then you can survive. So we look at Genesis chapter 7 and verse 21. Verse 21. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle and of beasts, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man, all in whose nostrils was the breath of life, and of all that was in the where? Dry land died, and every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and the creeping things, and the fowl of the heaven. So not even the skies. There is no place that you can run or hide. But notice that you can put exceptions here. All right. Notice that one, it doesn't say aquatic life in the waters. So in the waters, somehow you can survive. But think about it. Now, this is putting your thinking caps on. If you were aquatic life, and there's like storms and floods everywhere, and then there is volcanic eruption, let's say, I mean, worldwide catastrophe, aquatic life, they would be like, they could be in dangerous waters as well. So they have to go to safer places. Now, when there's a natural catastrophe, where would you run or hide to?
Top of the mountains.
The only place where you could run or hide to, now look at this. These are the waters here. You have to go to a stable, strong, secure place that is in the bottom of the ocean or in waters where it's a little bit more calm, so to speak. What am I saying? I'm saying that what makes the most sense to me is that if the aquatic life wanted to survive underneath the water, they have to go to a rock or something hard or some firm foundation that's more stable when there's a storm. Now, that's just common sense, right? If there's a huge storm, what's going to happen to people is that they want to go to a secure location, something that's hard, something that can withstand the torrents. Now, Jonah chapter 2 gives the next clue. Jonah chapter 2. There is an aquatic life that went deep inside the ocean. Now, keep your hand at Genesis 7, because I want to show you something else there. This is going to obviously be a boring subject, so just be prepared to go to more scriptures. Let's go to the book of Jonah, chapter 2.
Fair warning, Di.
The whale swallowed up Jonah. This aquatic life, the Bible points out, he went to the bottoms of the mountains. So notice a secure location, a secure place is given in the Bible somewhere in the
I did say top of the mountains.
Ocean, deep in the water. Jonah chapter 2. Notice in verse 5. Verse 5, the waters compassed me about even to the soul. The depth closed me round about. The weeds were wrapped about my head. I went down to the bottoms of the mountains. The earth with her bars was about me forever. Yet hast thou brought up my life from corruption, O Lord my God. Now, you'll notice right here that Jonah, when he was swallowed up by the whale, he went down underneath the waters. But the Bible says down to the bottom of the mountains. When you go deeper and deeper into the ocean, obviously the bottoms of the mountains and some strange rock or mountainous terrains are located down there. That's pretty obvious. People know about that. The verse points out that this is actually hell when you look at verse 2. Verse 2. And said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me. Out of the belly of hell cried I, and thou heardest my voice. So Jonah, he went down to hell. What I see here, if you're going to be those sons of God, those fallen angels, those demonic offspring. The way that they can only survive or be able to escape demonic creatures is to go where they rightfully belong, to hell. So here's the storm everywhere. You're going to go to a secure location, and the lowest point is actually the bottom of the ocean, where there is rocky, hard, secure substances, bottoms of mountains, and hell is underneath that. What's more obvious is volcanoes. So volcanic eruption. But we know from the volcanic eruption where this lava comes from, the center of the earth. That's hell. So mountain is connected. Mountain is connected. I see that all over. Now, there's another interesting thing when you look at Genesis chapter 7. Genesis chapter 7. So your bookmark's there, so I'm just going to read it immediately. The Bible says in verse 19, "And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered." So the mountains were covered by the waters. But think about this. If you go inside the mountain, it can go even underground. Now, there's something that technology, no matter how advanced it is, cannot reach. That's what our U.S. government have constantly claimed. They can't find certain Taliban leaders certain Muslim extremist terrorist groups in spite of their advanced technology.
Thanks, Di. I'm going to have to switch it to 10 a.m. then.
Technology, whether how much of that is true or not, but there is an element of truth why they're having a difficult time finding them is because they keep escaping to the mountains, run away in the mountains, because there are tunnels down there. You don't get connection down there, and it's so confusing. That's a great escape route, is where you can go to the mountains where there are tunnels, and it can go underground, and then you can escape the...
Yeah, Diane, I'll just go an hour earlier, which means I'm going to go at 10 o'clock, which is very early for me.
Apocalypse, or the worldwide...
What do you want, Moon? Come on.
Think about this. The Antichrist, with his advanced technology, he's going to be persecuting tribulation saints. Tribulation saints, they can't run or hide because of artificial intelligence, and then you got the satellite up in the skies, and there's no place to run or hide, to be honest. But there is one exception in spite of the advanced technology: the mountains, when you go down to the tunnels. So what I believe is this: no matter how advanced AI will be, and it's very scary, there is a limitation that AI cannot reach, I believe. It's going to be the mountains, those tunnels. Why? Because even the fallen angels and their offspring survived God's judgment through that. So I think that these mountains are very important.
Yeah.
They're salient regarding our study.
Yeah, Di, I'm bad with clocks and math. I thought I was an hour earlier. I'll go an hour earlier tomorrow. I'll go back to normal tomorrow. Now I know.
And how the sons of God and their offspring were able to survive even with the most advanced technology. Advanced powers that try to threaten their lives. Then you're pointing out, preacher, that how they survived the flood is escaping to the mountains, going down where hell is, to the bottom of the ocean, and that's how they survived Noah's flood. Yes. So then, when the Bible says the waters were receded and the mountains were showing its head, I think that's when the sons of God, their offspring, start to come out. They start to come out of those peaks. Yeah, sometimes it makes you wonder why the raven never came back. But anyways, the thing is, this is how, what I personally hold on to is that the Nephilim, the sons of God, and their offspring survived is down there. That's very salient when we're going to talk about ancient Greek history. They believe that they had a kingdom called Atlantis back then. This Atlantean kingdom was before this ancient kingdom, where you get Troy and where you get a lot of the mythology, famous Greek stories from, is the Mycenaean kingdom.
Di, I was watching something interesting on Troy the other day, and remember Paris was the one who backdoored the Agamemnon? He backdoored him. Well, when Troy fell, they migrated into Europe and all that, and Paris, France is named after Paris from Troy, and they were Nephilim, they were giants. So, and one of the other ones went and settled England, and they made all the Druid religion up, and they were Nephilim, they were giants.
You've heard me briefly talk about that in our ancient world history class. But the Mycenaeans are the ones where people start to uncover real history, not just mythology, real history about Troy, and then other things that were going on. That's where Iliad and Odyssey came out. Iliad and Odyssey came out from that kingdom. There was another kingdom before the Mycenaean Greeks, which I don't have them right now, but there was another kingdom before the Mycenaean Greeks, to my knowledge. If I'm incorrect, then I'm correct. Then I'm incorrect. But this kingdom, which was even before, was it Minoans? No, not Minoans. But anyways, the Mycenaeans took stuff from this ancient kingdom before them, and that's when they start to build up Troy. That's when they start to build up their kingdom. But the kingdom before the Mycenaeans, it was actually at a time where I think it was that Atlantis that they were looking at. It was during the time of Noah's flood. That's what they were concentrating upon. Then after that, that's where this next kingdom came out, the Mycenaeans, and then they built up their famous city of Troy. This knowledge that they gathered, Mycenaeans, is similar to where you have to trace back to the Tower of Babel. How were they able to build their structure? They were able to build a structure where they wanted to connect to heaven itself. God even pointed out that it wouldn't stop them, meaning that it's possible. They could have reached up there. So they had this ancient they had the knowledge, they had the equipment or technology, quote unquote, to build it. If they were able to do that, how? It's pretty obvious they were able to do it because of the knowledge that they received from their ancestors. Remember, Noah built an...
Okay, if they can build the Tower of Babel, I'm pretty sure they know how to build submarines. I wonder if they use submarines in the flood? It's not such an outlandish question.
Remember, his sons, they were builders. So these people, they were into building. So they had that knowledge back then. Obviously, that knowledge has been lost. The genius way the Lord had to get rid of that knowledge was to mess up their language. When you lose words or communication, you can't pass down as much knowledge as you can. So that's how the Lord was able to disintegrate, and they were able to lose their knowledge. The Mycenaeans, that's how they were able to build up their kingdom. They had to go by whatever leftover knowledge that they had to build their technology and to build some things that would connect to the gods or to the heavens. It's interesting that what some of these people claimed. In the 2nd millennium BCE, Mycenae was one of the major centers of Greek civilization. And from around 1400 to 1200 BCE,
Mycenae is where the Minotaur come from. You know that Minotaur story? It come from them.
was the predominant power of the Peloponnese.
Yep.
Lying about 90 kilometers southwest of Athens, it was a military stronghold that held sway from its mountainous perch overlooking the plains of Argos and had a population of over 30,000 people at its height. Over a millennium later, in the 2nd century CE, the Greek travel writer Pausanias wrote breathlessly about his visit to its ruins, the large stones of which were so impressive that he believed them to have been built by giants, kind of like the pyramids, right? How were they able to move those big blocks and build their huge structures without the modern technology that we have today?
We still can't do it
So
today.
this is all interconnected. The pyramids and the Tower of Babel, the vast knowledge that they had. It was antediluvian knowledge. Antediluvian meaning before the time of Noah, combined with survival of these demonic creatures. That's clear to me. That's pretty clear to me. There's no way that they could have done that. I mean, when you all went to the Stonehenge, I'm sure some of you were laughing about how they said the Stonehenge was built, right? Like, it's just hard to believe how they were able to build that by just their own hands. There is no doubt you have to have some sort of sons of God bloodline. It's just easier that way so that they could just build it up like Legos or something like that. It's just easier that way. He says, the Greek travel writer Pausanias, ancient writer, the wall, which was the only part of the ruin still remaining, is a work of the Cyclops, made of unwrought stones, each stone being so big that a pair of mules could not move the smallest from its place to the slightest.
Them walls in South America, where all them rocks are carved perfectly, it's folklore is it was the Cyclops that built them. So from what I gather, you know, all these bricks are all built, and you can't fit a paper between them. They're all done by the Cyclopses. I think they are the stonemasons.
Great. Long ago.
Which means they had intelligence. So, wow, what did they deal with?
The small stones were so inserted that each of them binds the large blocks firmly together. So he believed that Cyclops may have built them. Cyclops, that's one of those ancient mythological Greek creatures you have heard about. So again, this is all connected, like I said. Now, when they built the famous city of Troy, they mentioned that Troy was indeed a grand city, much as Homer describes. It was topped with an impressively fortified citadel and contained artifacts that suggest trade links to the Hittites, Assyrians, and Babylonians. Now, he mentions here that the city of Troy, it went through several rises and falls. So it went through several reconstruction projects. But one of the building or reconstructions that they built in Troy, they called it, which is so weird. I don't know why they gave it this number, but Nebuchadnezzar gave it the number 2. Can you guess? Troy number 6. They called it Troy 6, their most famous building of that time, their most famous reconstruction, their most glorious kingdom that time. The famous version was 6. Troy 6, and it lasted from about 1750 BCE until about 1300 BCE. According to the Greek epics, its walls were built by the gods, Poseidon and Apollo. And in reality, they were certainly impressive. If you're to think about one of those gods, the god's name is Poseidon. Poseidon, he's a god from the ocean, correct? Where they get that idea from. That somebody with a godlike power came from the ocean and built this city for us. Think about that. Now, am I saying that the sons of God built Troy number 6? I don't think Troy number 6. I think the other places, though, that they did build, But my point is this. My point is that this idea had to come from someplace, not from thin air. Mythology, as I told you many times, does not come out of thin air. It is based off of a real event that happened. You give it 1.5 generations, then it's stretched, the version. And then the stories and versions kind of mix, and you can't really tell how which parts are true or which ones are false. Even if there is no sons of God activity, the bottom line is this, is that there is this psychology within mankind, this connection that God's had to build these ancient kingdoms for us, that's connected to 6, and that's connected to gods and their offspring. That's a dark spirit. It doesn't change that fact, even if you don't believe in the Nephilim offspring. Now, how did they build this kingdom? It's so weird. It's all connected to 6s, which is very weird, okay? So they made it 9 meters high with towers soaring up to 18 meters. So you just switch 9 upside down, that's 6. 18, you go 6, 6, and 6. And then they called their city Troy number 6. There's a weird psychology there, see? It's a weird psychology. They want it all connect together. Around the citadel, replete with royal palaces, is a long curtain wall enclosed a large urban area. But unfortunately for historians, the ruins of Troy are strangely silent. That is, there has been almost no writing uncovered in any excavations of the city, and it's unclear even what language the people of Troy spoke of. Now, how did ancient Greece lose their famous kingdom? Well, during this time, I think that these are the possibilities. The possibility is that the remnants of those sons of God, after the flood, got out of their little mountain, and then where they do is they're going to go to the nearest landmass. So where do they go? They went to here, obviously. That's where Goliath is, right? The Philistines. But the next landmass is here, Greece. It just makes sense. So they would go over here, and then that's where you hear so many ancient mythological legends from in Greece about Zeus commingling with the humans, and then there's a half bull, half human running around a maze in there that the king has built. It's Hercules. There's so many strange demonic activity. Iliad, Odyssey. How much of that is true? How much of that is false? How much of that is true? But the account is just borrowed from something more long ago.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So these...
Diane, that's just your country, is it? Well, you are under bad judgment. It looks like you guys are under judgment, doesn't it? Wow, it looks terrible.
Accounts, these stories, these characters, the giants, the gods, all of that you've heard had to come from some real event. That's the bottom line. And the biblical event we already know, which I believe is before the flood and even after the flood. During the time of, let me put the timeline here now. During the time of Joshua to Judges. Obviously, all the way to the time of Abraham and Moses as well. But this is the timeline I'm going to mostly concentrate, where all this has occurred. So it can go back to Abraham and Moses, and there are some dates here that go way back over there. But I noticed when I compared it with Usher's timeline,
Travi, no.
Full annihilation, no survivors of those Jews slaughtering the offspring of Nephilim. All of
Hi, Trace, good to see you.
That's very weird. What did God want to do? He wanted to clean
I
out
just broke the cats up fighting.
He wanted to clean house. It's very strange. There's no coincidence with God. He had them annihilate for a reason. Some people will go, well, that's just really mean that God would do that. You don't know what they were messing with that time. So God had to clean house. Some interesting...
Diane, they can protest Trump all they want. It's not going to change anything. He's full steam ahead, and he doesn't care about the protesters. And why should he? They're all crooked.
Things that he also mentioned.
Quick.
I read to you page 60 and 61 from his book.
There's a big
I'm
trade
going to
taking it out.
read some other ones here. There are 6 big powers in time. It's known as the Late Bronze Age. So he's talking about the fall of the Late Bronze Age era. And this is covering during the times of Joshua to Judges, up to the borderline of 1 Samuel as well.
So you got
The
10?
entire military, on page 65, he says the entire military might of the region's superpowers are the following: Egypt, Assyria, the Hittites, Ugarit, Babylon, and Mycenae, Greece. These are the big 6 during the time. Now, you notice how God...
Yeah, Tracy Squizzy, he's the one who gets attacked. He brings it on himself. Because whenever they're in the same room together, he looks at Scrappy like, oh, don't you attack me. And Scrappy catches that and attacks him. So he brings it on himself.
Would wipe them out. Egypt was ruined by Moses' rod. Babylon, he destroyed it with messing up their language. He also had the Jews make sure that the Hittites in the land of Canaan, that they were conquered. So these 6 major superpowers, the Jews had to fight against. But how did these kingdoms fall? Why are they extinct today? Go back to Genesis 14.
Hey, Shawnee, good to see you.
Not Genesis 14. Let's go to Jude. That's easier. Let's go to Jude. So God had it performed, the annihilation of the sons of God offspring, through those Jews. But obviously the Jews, they can't just scatter all over the world and be able to wipe out every offspring of the Nephilim. So think about this. Is there another way that God could wipe them out? He can't send them a worldwide flood because he promised Noah he can't do that. There is another way how he can wipe out the Nephilim offspring. He did it before. Only one city is mentioned, though.
Sodom and Gomorrah, but that's 2 cities.
Can some of you guess? There is a city that had Nephilim offspring, and without the involvement of the Jews wiping them out, God did it himself. There's only one event mentioned in the Bible. Sodom. God, what did he do? He opened up...
See, that's not right. It's Sodom and Gomorrah. So I was correct.
Hell.
It's not one city, that's 2 cities.
And had them burned to the ground. Scholars say how this kingdom was lost was a volcanic eruption.
Pig's bum.
Not only this, but this is historically even given with many other ancient kingdoms. Think about it. If you study ancient history, it's so interesting how many other ancient kingdoms, they died out due to volcanic eruptions. Or
I had a book on the Greek pantheon of gods. It's a fascinating pantheon. They really go into details more than anyone else does regarding Hindus and that.
Earthquakes that would open up hell. You do know earthquakes come from hell, right?
Yes.
When God does an act of hell, when he damns the kingdom through earthquakes or volcanic eruptions, that shows here to me that what those ancient kingdoms were messing with when they talked about, hey, the gods are commingling with us, it explains why God did all that. It just makes sense to me that way. So go to Jude. Go to Jude. Notice the famous, well, it's famous in our church because I keep using it. It shouldn't be famous. Jude 6. And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation. Because we know those fallen angels, they commingled with those on earth, right? So then God, he damned them. He had reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. But you'll notice right here, even as, right? Even as. So Sodom and Gomorrah did the same thing that those fallen angels were doing. That means.
Wow.
And the cities about them in like manner. Now,
Diane, they're moves of a dictator. You can't get with this person because they're Chinese. Oh man, he's starting to show his colours already. Ah, stunned.
Did you notice that?
Come on, William, just picked you up.
That plural. Other cities were following what Sodom and Gomorrah were doing in like manner as those fallen angels were doing. What?
There was actually 5 cities destroyed with Sodom and Gomorrah.
England, with everything on the earth. How do you know it's commingling? The verse says so. Giving themselves over to fornication and going after, see that? Strange flesh. Weird things going on. But notice how hell is connected to this judgment. Are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of what? Eternal fire. God opened up hell. He mentions right here on page 61, the grand royal city of Troy, number 6, was destroyed around the year 1300 BCE, possibly by an earthquake. There's widespread damage to the foundations of the buildings and some sign of fire damage to the city stone. So that's very interesting. That's one way how you can wipe this offspring of the sons of God is through God's judgment, like he did with Sodom and Gomorrah, opening up hell. So God's judgment, obviously. The second one that I mentioned to you already a few times is through conquest, annihilation from the Jews. Interestingly, some people say Troy was conquered. So that's how they died out as well. Is because some other soldiers came from no man's land and wiped them out and ransacked them. He says right here.
I was telling Diane before you guys come that Paris from Troy, the one who actually backdoored Agamemnon on Helen, well, when Troy fell, they fled to Europe, and that's where Paris, France comes from. He founded Paris in France. Paris from Troy.
Others argue that it could have been sacked and that this is the event that Homer's Iliad remembers. After this disaster, people rebuilt many of the monumental palaces and re-inhabited the city in a somewhat diminished form, but then around 1190 BCE, the city was burned again as a wave of destruction passed over the whole region. Rewind. Interesting. Okay?
The whole region.
So let's say Troy was ransacked. You know that famous story, right? They put Trojan's horse over there.
Yeah.
And then the people wanted that horse so much, so they brought it inside, and then the people came out of that horse and destroyed all of them. Now, it makes you wonder how much of that is true. And if they were really good builders at that time, maybe they made it look really real.
The half Nephilim, they would have looked real.
Like, if you look at current inventions of mankind, how they build things, it almost looks real to the point that people fantasize with them or develop a relationship with them. CGI, AI characters. So I'm not saying they had that time, but they built it so advanced it almost looked real to them. If it looked real, that horse, why would they want to bring that inside? You know what Canaanites were messing with back then and commingling with?
Horses.
Go to Samuel. David did. For Samuel. Remember, the Bible is so boring. It is so boring. You'll never get anything out of it. Y'all awake. y'all are awake right now. Yeah, usually Sunday morning Bible says, oh, and then when you hear this, oh, you got my attention. Go to the book of 2 Samuel. Look at chapter 5. 2 Samuel, chapter 5. Now, David, he was cleaning house amongst the Philistines. The Bible says in 2 Samuel chapter 5 and then verse 22. Verse 22, and the Philistines came up yet again and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And when, now in that area, that's where the sons of God are located as well. But that's a whole different story. I don't really have time to do that. So he was conquering them. And then go to chapter 4. Chapter 4. Let's see right here. He mentions... no, it's not chapter 4. I'm sorry. I thought it was. Okay. I lost my place. I do apologize about that. Maybe I'll find it somewhere. But, oh, what's that? Oh, okay. I thought someone was giving me a verse there. Sorry. But there is a verse where the Bible points out when David was conquering some of those nations. I can't believe that I lost that passage. But this is one of them. And then the other one, it points out that David, he conquered this particular nation that was connected to Philistines, and that was even connected to the Canaanites and to those sons of God, but that he cut off the hamstrings of the horses. Now, isn't that very weird why he would do it that way? You know why, right? That's a particular muscle that's very important. That's part of sexual commingling and etc. A lot of weird, strange stuff going on. So David knew what was going on. That's why he made sure, hey, you guys are not going to follow along like those Canaanites are doing. This is really bad stuff. Okay, so I do apologize. I had that marked, but I lost it. Thank you. Chapter 8, verse 4. Chapter 8, verse 4. Thank God for Bible believers. Amen? Unless you all looked at an app. So, chapter 8. Chapter 8 and verse 4. Is this it? Let's see. Not that verse. It's not this verse. No, nice try, though. Nice try. But that ain't it. Sorry about that. But there's another verse. If any of you find it eventually, y'all have an app, okay? And just call it out, okay? If these Greeks were conquered, we know that the Jews were the ones who were wiping out the bloodline. Now, they were concentrating, obviously, all the way here. How is it that these guys got wiped out? Somebody tempted them with a horse. There's an infatuation with that horse. They let it in. That was their downfall. But who would know about horses and all this kind of stuff? Who is good with that? And Jews are the ones responsible for wiping them out. There's something interesting. The big 6 superpowers, it is possible, one theory goes, that they all fell because of this particular tribe of people who are very powerful. And they were so bothered by them. They called them sea people. Who cares? Oh, no, you will care after this. This is the most important part of the study, the sea people. When you look at the picture of some of the sea people, it's very weird. You could probably think of one character, one group of people in the Bible that look pretty similar. There we go. Once it pops out. The sea people, when you go trace their history, and if you remember from intermediate discipleship, I don't know if you remember at all, but Whittleson mentioned that this tribe, this group of people that the Jews fought for years, this tribe, out of all the other tribes in Canaan, was the most bothersome. They encompass several books of the Bible. Can you guess who they are? I'll give you a big clue. They were definitely connected to giants as well. Philistines. Philistines came from the sea people. Philistines, they ended up in Canaan, but they went so much as far as to Greece and the other 6 superpowers. The sea people broke into several parts. One of them is Philistines, and then they had many more. But these sea people were a thorn on the side. As a matter of fact, in Egypt, there is a famous account of Pharaoh conquering the sea people, but the Egyptians were just so bothered.
Okay, the Phoenicians were the sea people, the descendants of the sea people. Hannibal that fought Rome, they were all Phoenicians, and they come from Atlantis. So the myth goes, the myths are based in truth.
By them, that they were just such a thorn on the side to the 6
Sounds the same now, Palestine. The pain on the side.
For powers. But what does this have to do with Jews' conquest? Correct? The Jews, they were supposed to wipe out the Nephilim bloodline. So then what does this have to do with Philistines? More so than you think. There is an article, and I'll show it to you once I pull up the map real quick. Let's go back. There is a group of people that is connected to the sea people that a lot of people don't know about. Only one, and the clue is given. I want you to go to Genesis 49. Genesis chapter 49. Could some of you guess who it might be? The tribe of Dan. This is from Israel's news. All right, so I think this is their most oldest news source. Tribe of Dan, sons of Israel or of Greek mercenaries hired by Egypt. Not only that, it interestingly also even says Samson the Greek. Now, the easy answer to us is obviously we know Samson's a Jew. Danites are Jew. They're not Greeks. But they found historical artifacts or sources that there was a mixture of bloodlines there. So you know what that means? That means originally these are Jews, but somehow they butted heads with Philistines or one of the groups of the sea people, compromised with them, made marriages with them, and then they have their offspring. Who was Samson commingling with?
Philistines.
The Philistines.
Yep.
Who are from the ancient sea people, right? Think about this. And then the sea people were the ones that conquered. Ooh, what just happened? Okay. The sea people were the ones that conquered Troy or the other superpowers, and then they ransacked them. They gave their lives hell. They started chaos and then destroyed their kingdoms. The Greeks, they have the famous story of Hercules, and there's only one biblical character you can think of that matches perfectly well with Hercules. Samson. Where did they get that idea from? How did the story of Samson reach all the way to Greece unless, possible theory, Samson was messing with one of those Grecians' offsprings, sea people, and he's just commingling with so many other Philistine prostitutes? Don't tell me that maybe not one of them was pregnant. And Samson had superpowers. Could it be that one of those Philistine women who commingled with Samson carried on the Herculean superpower that reached up to Greece? Something to think about. All right, it's just really weird stuff. But I do know this: Samson was messing around. Why do you think God did not want the Jews to mess around with the Canaanites, the offspring? Now go to Genesis 49. Dan. He knew a thing or two about horses as well. His job, the Bible says, and then we'll close it here. So, oh, already, Pastor? Yeah, already. Yeah, part 2 next time. All right? You don't want to miss it. All right? Got a lot more goodies on this one. But in Genesis chapter 49, the Bible says in verse 16, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path, that biteth the horse heel, so that his rider shall fall backward. Dan is known to be a conqueror. When he reached the most northern part of Israel, Dan already reached up to here. He reached the limit. And then if you read the book of Joshua, the Bible says Dan was trying to find more land to conquer. Where could he go if he's all the way here? It's just common sense. You're going to have to work your way. And they were near seaports, too. It just makes a lot of sense. So Danites, it's very possible they were commingling with Grecians. That's how Grecians shared the same stories and characters with other biblical characters. All right, next time. All right, till next time.
Improve muscle strength in 90 days. Stand for strength with Ensure today.
This time, I'm not joking. They are trying to make it happen, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We have actually a ton of stuff to talk about, all surrounding this whole tariffs, the stocks tumbling, people are complaining. Oh no, there's also people out, of course, in the streets now. And actually, I'm going to explain this whole thing out to you. I'm going to show you what they're trying to do. They just brought out a new thing too. They're pulling out all the stops this time. I'm not joking. We have someone, a very familiar face, that all of a sudden showed up a few hours ago saying something might happen in the next year. Another. Yes, indeed. That guy even showed up. I think you know who I'm talking about. A certain doctor. I'm sure you remember him.
You got a pardon from Biden?
On the news every single day. Yeah, that guy showed up even. They don't like something that our president just did with all these tariffs. And I'm actually going to explain it out because it is pretty complex. It's a little confusing. I'm going to show you how actually this is going to turn around the entire economy. It's not going to cause a lot of trouble. Even a lot of people that are, I don't know, social media personalities that are talking about this don't understand what's going to happen. And I'm going to explain what I'm seeing, what they don't understand, and how this is all going to play out. And I'm going to show you what they're all trying to do to stop it, and much more. This is going to be wonderful. It's actually kind of interesting. So we actually have a ton of stuff to go through. So, of course, you have this trade war is escalating, right? Send stocks tumbling. This is what they're saying, obviously. And actually, they did go down a little bit, but not a lot. And actually, they even pulled Jim Cramer out. They literally pulled Jim Cramer out, the worst analyst in the history of TV, to talk about this. Check this out.
What the heck is going on?
Well, I'm let down because I'm not a free trader. I'm a fair trader, always have been from the days when you worked with me at CNBC.
Yeah.
And what I was hoping was that a coordinated thing where if you are charging us 20%, we charge you 20%. Instead of a car where we're only making you pay 2.5% and you're not letting us in, we try to get things better. But
right. So on a specific thing, you go, if they're trying to car, you go 10 on a car.
But I went deep on the numbers today, and the numbers did not make any sense. And I was actually.
And I was doing like bananas in Vietnam. You did Cramerica.
What I just said, it's one of these things where if I'm doing 100 billion and you're letting.
So he's now saying that what our president's doing is not what he initially described there. He described they charge us 20%, we charge 20%, right? Which is exactly what he's doing, by the way. But he's coming out and saying, the numbers don't look right. And of course, he's a business analyst, but he's been wrong so many times you will not believe it. The guy, I've covered him on my business channel numerous times. He'll tell you to buy a stock, and literally the stock will tank the next day. He's done that numerous times. He's very bad at analyzing what's going on in the markets. I don't know why he still has a job, except for perhaps to put out there things they want you to, of course, know. For example, he's predicting a Black Monday crash. Of course he is. Jim Cramer, who gets everything wrong, is predicting this. That's kind of interesting. So, to me, and again, I guess I'm a little bit sarcastic about all of this, but he's talking about something that happened back in 1987, a Black Monday collapse. And in reality, I've been saying for over a year that we're going to have a stock market crash, period. Because we have 3 different charts that have never been wrong, all saying we're going to have one. We had the yield curve on invert. Every single time that's happened, we had a stock market crash. Usually within the first 3 months. It's already been 3 months. So there's only one other time in the last 5 times that it's happened that it wasn't 3 months. It was like 9 months. We already know there's a guaranteed stock market crash, period. We already know it. Unless somehow our president pulls off a miracle, which maybe he will. I don't know. But what he's doing currently with these tariffs is not going to cause the stock market crash. It's going to be all the stuff that was going on for the last 2 decades, that just have kind of built up this whole thing, this whole bubble. All right. So, of course, if you look at the S&P 500, they're saying it's down. It's down basically. It's a little bit more than a half a year's worth. It's almost a year's worth, actually, at this point where the stock market is down. Of course, everyone's freaking out because of all the new media telling you, it's horrible, it's the end of the world. And in reality, though, this is actually going to be far better than you can imagine. Because if, let's just say she got it, what would have happened would have been she would have continued on the same policies as the former administration, and we would have had even skyrocketing inflation and things gotten even more insanely expensive. What's interesting, though, is I saw a stat from the Washington Times, the other side admitting prices are down. And I knew it. I was thinking I was right. I knew I was right. And I saw some evidence for it. Let me show you that. So I couldn't actually pull up the articles you have to pay for it, but I saw it over on this channel. If you look at this number over here, see the positive green? 6% down. Fast food, and this is from a publication on the other side. We're talking left, saying that prices are down at fast food joints ever since he got in. Okay.
Wow.
And remember, the last time he was in for 4 years, they had like a 1.5% inflation rate, and we've had like basically a 9% for the most part for the last 4 years. So already inflation's down. It's even reversing in some cases. And I was thinking that was the case. So I'm going to just kind of go through this and show you what I think is going on. I think they're trying to, and I can't say intentionally because it's not exactly, well, kind of is. I mean, they're literally trying to talk it into happening. They're trying to talk it into crashing. So then they can blame him and say it was a terrorist's fault. And then they can use all these protests, which, by the way, they're doing that today. Nationwide, hands-off protests. I'm telling you, all of this stuff is not what you would call natural, okay? I'm telling you this is not natural. And we've seen already evidence of this with some of the recent ones, where it was the exact same people, and they were getting, in some cases, they were doing it for a job, literally going to these places and, oh, no, I don't like this. And then they were actually literally getting paid to do it, okay? So what I think is going on here is they're trying to stop these tariffs because they know it will turn things around and it will make America stronger. And I can tell you how this whole thing works. And it's kind of amazing seeing how a lot of people don't understand how this works, but I have a business background. I used to sell, I have 2 companies. I used to sell, online a lot. I sold like 100,000 items online. And I've done a lot of research in this area, so I know quite a bit. But what's interesting about this, for example, here we go. General Motors will be sharply increasing vehicle production in Indiana following the tariffs per Reuters. Okay, so let me explain what's going on here. So back in the 1970s, half the GDP was in the middle class. Everyone was able to afford things back then. They could even afford insanely expensive houses back in the 80s. They had like 20% interest rates, and they could buy a house. If you tried to buy a house at a 20% interest rate, you would drown right now. Almost everybody would. Even millionaires would probably have drowned in some cases. So people had serious money back then because all the manufacturing was in America. And my dad was a mechanic that worked with the engineers at General Motors. My uncle was high up in the UAW at General Motors. So my family's kind of worked in that area. Even my brother's wife worked at Chrysler as an engineer. So I know quite a bit about cars and sort of like how the stuff works. The fact is, Americans have no money now. There's no middle class because there's no manufacturing jobs. Yeah. AI is taking all the white collar jobs. So basically, if we had, let's just say she got it. Okay, she got it. You would have no blue collar, no white collar jobs. You would literally have nothing left other than store jobs or whatever you want to call it. Everyone would be completely broke. We're talking AI is starting to take over. I can show you that too. I got so many things. I want to get into all this because I can see what's happening here. And again, this guy, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit. This dude popped up today. I'm telling you, they're trying to stop him because he's turning things around, and they want it to collapse. Okay, they want the economy to collapse. Certain people. I'm not saying, most people don't, but I'm talking about those, of course, at the top want it to collapse. Okay, they want it, and this would do it. Another one of these things would do it. Okay, this guy comes around and says there's going to be another one today, of all days. Of course, he's going to come around and say that. Now, what was I going to show? I was going to show you this thing. I got like a million windows open. Where is it? Okay, like usual, it took me forever, but I found it finally. Here you are. Goldman Sachs, AI to displace 300 million jobs, make inequality worse. So look, is it a weird coincidence that all the manufacturing blue-collar jobs are disappearing, and then next, AI is going to replace all the white-collar jobs because they can't apparently make robots that can work blue-collar jobs yet?
Modern dating is just not for me. I'm looking for my happily ever after.
This is Joel at work. This is Joel at work.
Whoa! Where they?
Inside the phone, Joel. Snap and track expenses with Solo by MYOB from $12 for 12 months.
Okay, dude. So you're over 50 and want to get in shape by May 1st. Start April 7th with 7-minute chair workout. It's just 7 minutes a day. Easy to follow.
So they want everyone to be completely and utterly broke. You remember that whole saying from 7 years ago or 5? You will own, of course, nothing and at the same time be happy. You remember that whole thing? Yeah, that's what they want. But see, our president is literally trying to take it the opposite direction by bringing back all these manufacturing jobs. Half the GDP in the 1970s was the middle class. Now it's none of them. There is no middle class right now. He's bringing all these jobs back. And it's actually, so what's going on here is, under the previous administration, very high inflation. Now the inflation's cooled down much more than it ever did during the last 4 years. Very low. Matter of fact, even reversed in the case of fast food. Lost 6% on the price. The price actually went down 6% overall, while it was continuing to go up the entire time before. So inflation's cool. They're going to be cutting all this debt out, right? We got the USAID and all these things closing down. That will make interest rates very low, so you can actually afford a home and things like that. You can get a low interest rate. Then we have him trying to bring back all these jobs using tariffs. Now, explain to me, why is it almost every country in the entire world has tariffs on America, but we have a measly 2.5% on them? So they have like 20, 30% tariffs on any American goods coming into their country, but we have a 2.5. Now, let me explain something. Because he did this, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to explain out what's going to happen, because almost no one seems to understand what's going to happen. I'm going to explain it. So let's say you put 20%, let's say on Korea, and they put 20, they already got 20% on us. I don't remember the exact number. Let's just say it's 20. So 20% on us, we reciprocated, right? And I could look it up. It's probably 30 or whatever it is. what's going to happen is like, oh man, that sucks. Let's just lower that a little bit. Let's like lower theirs to 10, and then they'll lower it back to 10. So they'll lower theirs because they don't like the fact that they can't sell stuff to us anymore. So they'll lower it to 10 on their side, and then we lower it to 10 on our side. So all these things are going to come down. There's another factor. So eventually you're going to see all these tariffs probably come down, all right, on all sides, which will make it so we can actually sell products into their countries now. So instead of us just consuming everything that China makes, we're actually selling stuff into China now. So GM, General Motors, who can't sell a car anywhere other than America, will actually be able to sell worldwide their cars. And what does that mean? I'll tell you very simply. When you sell more cars, it means you can make it cheaper. That's what it means. You have any product that sells a lot, you can make the cost come down. Have you ever noticed, like when you have like a certain product, let's say a guitar, and let's say there's like 5 colors of the guitar. Have you ever noticed that some of them cost more than others? Why is it there's a color difference and it costs more? Because the one color that's the cheapest is the one made the most. Everyone's buying that one color. That's why it's so cheap. So if GM is making cars and selling 3 times as many cars, guess what happens to the car price? It comes down.
Mm-hmm.
So you aren't going to be paying more for a car. You're going to be paying less for a car because of what he's doing. Not more, less. You see what I'm getting at now? On top of that, you're going to get a job that's better than before, at a job like a manufacturing job, potentially. I'm not saying you, but overall, just say Random Joe. Random Joe gets a better job. He has a higher pay than he used to work at. Some store. Now he actually works in, as a manufacturing, some job like Toyota or whatever, GM or Stellantis, whatever it is. And it might not even be that. It could be anything. It could be John Deere, whatever's made here. Because it's not just cars. It's actually a lot of jobs. You got John Deere coming back here. You got just tons of companies. It could be anything. You could be making heaters. You could be making chairs or whatever. You could be selling your chairs now 10. You can sell it not 10 times, but maybe 2 times, 3 times, 5 times. Who knows? You can sell a lot more chairs than you used to because now you can sell it into other countries, which you couldn't do before because of all these tariffs on America. You see what I'm getting? Does this not now make sense? It's just amazing to me that no one knows this. I've watched numerous videos and no one understands this stuff that I'm explaining to you right now, which is hilarious because you got all these experts on the news and they don't know anything.
That's true. I don't really understand tariffs, but he just explained it pretty simply, didn't he?
Jim Cramer is a perfect example of someone who doesn't understand this. So, of course, let me show you proof of this. Let me show you some proof. Here we go. Ford Company will offer employee pricing to U.S. shoppers. Why? Because they're going to sell more now. Ford is going to be able to sell more cars than they used to be able to because now they'll be able to sell into other countries. They couldn't sell into other countries before. Toyota will sell millions to us, but we would sell 0 GMs to them. You see what I'm getting at now? So now they can make so many more of them, they can lower the manufacturing costs. I used to be a mechanical engineer. I used to actually work at a semi-truck company called Navistar, which is a semi-truck producing company. I was one of the engineers. But I understand business and I understand manufacturing because I actually have a background in both. So the prices will come down for Ford. That's why they can give you an employee discount because now they can make more of them. Now they can sell more of them. You will have a lower price. I'm sorry, I was getting a little too excited there. It's just I'm a little bit passionate about this because it's just amazing. Yeah. Some people understand this. Our VP understands this. Our president understands this. Let's just play this clip here of him talking about it.
Explain to us how you get manufacturing here, but also get the cost down for the American people.
Well, if you go back a little bit, Lawrence, remember during the first Trump administration, everybody said that Trump's tariffs were going to be inflationary back then. What actually happened? We had a 1.5% inflation. We had the fastest growing economy in a generation, and we had the beginning of a manufacturing renaissance in the United States of America. Then, of course, we had 4 terrible years of the Biden administration. But to make it a little bit more crystal clear, we borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture.
Okay, now think about this. So, like, when you borrow money to buy stuff, are you making money? This is literally it's like totally backwards. It's like just a total debt-based mindset that goes nowhere fast, very fast. That's why we're so broke now as a country. right? So we should be selling into China. We shouldn't be buying from China. We should be selling. You're supposed to trade back and forth, not just consume everything from there and sell them nothing and be completely broke because we are selling nothing other than, I mean, what are we selling? I mean, you see what I mean? Like, we're literally selling nothing anywhere. It's kind of hilarious. All we sell is the dollar. We sell the dollar. We send the dollar out to other countries. They use our dollar. That's about the only thing we've been selling.
And that's gone now that Saudi Arabia signed up the BRICS. It's only a matter of time before it catches up.
We need to change that because the dollar's not getting any better. It's not backed by anything anymore, although we're going to start doing that with the petrol oil contracts in America when they start drilling in America. But the fact is, we're not selling anything. That's why we're so dang broke now. So we need to sell stuff and stop buying everything from overseas. That's basically what he's saying. And so this is really going to turn the economy around. And they don't want you to know this. And they're trying to make this artificial type of thing. I already showed you how they're pulling out everything. They pulled out Jim Cramer. He's predicting a stock market crash. They pulled out a certain doctor from 4 years ago saying, oh, something might happen. Why would they do that? Obviously, someone doesn't like this guy here. They don't want him to turn around our economy, probably because they're not involved. They're not gaining money. We're talking about those, of course, who've been running, the show for a while, and they're losing to BRICS. They're losing to him. So they want him to fail. They want you to fail. That's why this is happening. That's why you got Jim Cramer predicting what he's predicting. That's why you got the doctor coming out again. And there's actually other things. We'll get into all of them. Let's just play this real quick.
All right. In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal. That means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple. Can't get any simpler than that. Oh, boy. This is one of the most...
Australia got tariffs from Trump, but down the low end, we got a 10% tariff because we charge the US 10% to sell our beef. So Trump's only fair here. I don't blame him doing that for Australia.
Important days, in my opinion, in American history. It's our declaration of economic independence for you.
Think about that. This is why they're trying to stop it. Okay, that's why all this stuff's happening. You have a massive nationwide protests against this. You see that? In Boston, hands off the economy. Yeah, what do you think they've been doing all this time? It's just
look how many are there. That's thousands of people, whether you're in the right or wrong. If they riot, you're not going to survive it.
Amazing. These people are simply not understanding what's going on. They don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand how they're actually going against their own best interests. They don't understand that. It's kind of amazing, actually.
Here's hardworking American citizens.
Qantas Money Home Loans come with 100,000 Qantas points every year.
Do you want to build your dream business? From dreams to success, our self-employment assistance program has helped businesses like yours thrive. Get expert support.
In the face of adversity, Caritas partners with people facing poverty, hunger, and disaster. We walk hand in hand with vulnerable communities.
Citizens were forced to sit on the sidelines as other nations got rich and powerful, much of it at our expense. But now it's our turn to prosper, and in so doing, use trillions and trillions of dollars to reduce our taxes and pay down our national debt. And it all.
Check that out. Check it out. So he's talking about using the ERS to replace the IRS, External Revenue Service Center. External Revenue Service, I guess is the way we should say it. But obviously, getting the money from tariffs is the point.
It all happened very quickly. With today's action, we are finally going to be able to make America great again, greater than ever before. All right.
Yeah, so I mean, you get the idea of what he's saying there, right? So A lot of people don't understand what's going on. It's just kind of amazing.
So long as you don't have a romance with a Chinese woman. That's just crazy, that, Diane, isn't it?
Really just don't.
That's like
I really
Hitler
hope they can understand.
saying you can't marry into the Jews. He's saying that the Americans can't marry the Asians. Wow.
What's going on. I hope they see my video or see someone else talk about what this really means, because I haven't seen very many people understand this fully yet. Maybe they need someone to explain an example like I did earlier with cars, that these companies are going to be able to sell cars everywhere now, not just America, which will make the prices come down because they're selling so many of them. Yeah. Just like when you see a very best-selling product in, like on Amazon, and you look at the different colors, and one color is really cheap, all the other ones are very expensive, because the cheap one is the one that they sell all the time, and they have tons of it, right? Except for when they run out of stock, then that's a different story. But it's all supply and demand, and also manufacturing costs coming down, all that kind of stuff. Now, of course, what is the media saying? Investors flee U.S. stocks as markets react sharply. It's hilarious. Why is every country doing this to us? Because it obviously works. That's why they're doing it. Why don't we do it? Because someone was making money in the back end by allowing this to occur, right? Because they don't want America to be strong. Because they're global, of course, minded. They don't want a country to be on its own strong. They want all of them weak, of course, underneath them. That's why they're called global, of course. It's. You see what I mean? That's why they're called that. Now, at any rate, so that's why you have news like that. The fact is, these are all going to come down. This is basically him forcing them to come down. They're not going to stay up. It's not rocket science. It's just like what we saw with Canada and Mexico. Every time he put a tariff, they would do whatever he told them to. Because these tariffs are too high. They know it. So they can't sell into America now, just like we can't sell them to their country. Like, oh, crap, we can't make any money now. Oh, no. Whoops, maybe we lower our tariff on them and then they'll lower it back. Duh. We can't sell GM cars into Japan or Korea. So, but they can sell all their cars over here. Oh, that's kind of weird. Well, now you got a tariff. You can't sell your cars here either. We can't sell our cars there. You can't sell them here. But, well, we don't like that. We want to make money. We need a GDP. We'll just lower our tariff on you and you'll lower our tariff on us. How's that sound? Okay, sounds like a great idea. Then all the tariffs go down everywhere. You see what I mean? No more of this goofy stuff that they've been doing against our country all this time. Algeria won't be sticking with their super high tariffs against American goods anymore, will they? No, they won't. Because they'll have to lower it if they want to do any business here. Same with all these other countries. They're all going to have to lower their tariffs if they want to do business here. And they do want to do business here. That's the entire point. Otherwise, they have no money. That's the entire point. It's not rocket science. It's super easy to understand. You won't let me do something, I ain't going to let you do something. Oh, well, I want to be able to do something, then lower your tariffs. So that's what's going to happen. It's very simple. At any rate, of course, as usual, I have to mention this. If you haven't already bought it, I highly recommend you do. Food supply, 25 years shelf life. Link is in the description. Of course, like I said, these guys, of course, at the top are not interested in this all succeeding. So they're going to try whatever and anything they can. It's always wise to be prepared. Link is in the description. I'm hoping and, of course, praying that everything turns out fine, which I think it will. But it's always wise to be prepared. Okay? This book here, The Lost Ways, How Your Great-Great-Grandfather Lived Without Electricity. How to build a cellar, do things around the house like they did in the good old days. Hundreds of pages illustrated. You're going to need that book before the lights go out. All the electricity's off for weeks, potentially in some weird situation. You might want to have that book. Get the printed version, $37 for shipping. Link is in the description. Let's get back to the video. So, of course,
good night, Di.
5% auto tariff. Go away, Ed.
I was just about to say I'm out after this as well.
He announces that. Well, obviously, I already explained multiple times.
And Di, I'll go back to normal time tomorrow.
What's going to happen? The tariffs will go down on their country and our country. That's what's going to happen. Unless they just like not being able to sell in America, which is it's their prerogative. If whatever country, Algeria doesn't want to sell them to America because they could sell them to some other country. Okay, fine, whatever, dude. You can have your tariff. We have our tariff on you. You don't let us sell in your country anyway, so we aren't losing anything. You're the ones losing, not us. So, but I think in most cases, what you're going to see happen is they're like, oh man, we need to sell into America. So, yeah, let's fix this problem, right? Of course, remember, the last 4 years, they were telling us about all these experts, 17 experts, that told us that this is transitory inflation. It's only a temporary inflation. And now 4 years later, you've seen how untemporary it was until our new president got in, and actually inflation went down. And actually now you actually can afford food. It's fast food, apparently. It's down 6% longer. You still can't afford it. But, you know, I mean, it's cheaper a little bit. And so I just find this all hilarious. Let's look at this guy here. Let's look at, oh yeah, this is funny. I should show you this. This is kind of funny. How about Nancy? You know, Pelosi encourages America to back reciprocal tariffs. She said it herself.
How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit and loss of jobs for the American worker? And how much more dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo?
Oh, wow. Apparently you did in the end, didn't you, Nancy? Because clearly you're not fighting for this anymore. 2008, Bernie wants tariffs, saying jobs are going overseas. Huh. What happened, Bernie? I thought you understood this simple fact back in 2008, but you don't understand it right now for some strange reason. Of course, you have all these other people as well. You got Barack here doing it as well, saying the same thing. But for some reason, there's only one person that's now saying it that said it back in 1988. And you have here, of course, this doctor right here saying, oh, look, something's going to happen. It's going to happen again. Really? Did you pay with, you know, your soul there, Mr. Doctor? I don't know. It's kind of weird. Timing's a little strange. I mean, literally perfectly strange. Your timing's so impeccable there, Doctor. Of course they're going to come out with that. And so I can see that this is actually going to really turn our economy around very quickly. I still feel like there's going to be a stock market crash because 3 charts tell us there's going to be one. Although what our president's doing is not normal. It's not usual for our economy. So I don't know how that would play into it, right? So maybe it won't happen. So even if it did happen, it's not because of his tariffs. I can guarantee you that. They literally attempted to cause it to happen already, and it didn't happen. I mean, it's kind of funny to look at, actually. They're like trying to talk it into happening. Have you noticed that they keep telling us inflation's up ever since he got in? Yet inflation's actually down. And then when the last 4 years, they kept telling us that there was no inflation, when there was tons of inflation. So it's kind of funny to watch. Are you going to believe with your eyes or your ears? Are you going to believe what you see, or are you going to just believe what they tell you? That's the question you should ask yourself. This guy here, he's known prophet, Troy here, apparently predicting basically what I'm telling you is going to happen. Now, it's just kind of funny because he'll predict stuff, and I can see it. Like, I'm not hearing it. Well, I guess I could be sort of getting ideas from on high or something, but I figure these things out, and I'm like, this is going to happen. And then I see him predict it. I'm pretty sure he doesn't watch my channel, but he'll predict, like this time I'm actually saying it after him. So, but I've said the same thing as him based on my own analysis, and he'll predict it because he heard from on high. Not what I'm doing here, really. I'm just figuring it out. I mean, maybe I'm getting a little help from on high. I don't know. But the fact is, I mean, it's pretty obvious to me. And he's saying it's going to turn the economy around. I think he's right. I think it will. But I think it's sort of good news, too, because I think that this will fail. I don't think they're going to be able to pull this off. I don't know. I don't think they're going to be able to pull it off. Although they're going to try. I'm pretty sure they're going to try. At any rate, so there's all that. I wanted to talk about all that. We have also a little bit of, I wanted to get into some of this with Hollywood And also, we're going to get into RFK because he's got some interesting stuff as well. Wanted to get into. Let's talk about this. We have Robert De Niro's new mob drama, Also Nice, box office disaster. Not really surprising. All those that seemingly go, of course, against the president seemingly do well or not well in the theaters. Robert De Niro being one of them. You have, of course, Rachel Zegler as well, with apparently Disney benching her because of her PR nightmare with the movie Snow White. She's no longer going to be doing interviews on Ellen's show and other, top level like Jimmy Fallon or whatever. She's not going to do any of her tour anymore. And then you have, of course, this guy, Pedro Pascal, which they've been trying to use him for everything. They had him in The Mandalorian. They had him in that TV show, The Last.
Earn up to 70,000 bonus Qantas points with the CommBank Ultimate Awards credit card. Plus, enjoy a $0 monthly fee and no.
Last of Us. Says here he's under fire for supporting Rachel Zegler, which of course, Rachel Zegler is. I don't know. I don't have no clue why he would have supported her because she's just really kind of this. Actually, one of the worst for promoting a movie ever. Actually, probably the best for destroying a movie I've ever seen out of all actresses and actors. You have here, of course, RFK talking about you meeting with the food companies about 2 weeks ago. They're scared of him. They said that, tell us what you want. We're going to do it. But stop these governors from passing these laws, banning food dyes. Apparently, they're scared of all these governors banning food dyes because they're going to have to actually change their food. Actually put in there something that is natural from a fruit, perhaps, coloring, which is what they do in Canada, in the UK, which they should have been doing with our food a long time ago. But of course, they're not looking out for you and I, are they? They're not. They're not looking out for those in our families.
And Governor Morrissey was telling me that he met with the soda companies this week. And they said to him, you need to be educated about this. And they said, food stamps is not a nutrition program. He came in with his Diet Coke. And he said, is there anything nutritious in here? And they were like, no, of course not. But food stamps is not a nutrition program. And he said, it's called SNAP, Supplementary Nutrition Assistance Program. It's supposed to be nutrition. It's not supposed to be food-like substances that are actually poisoning us.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it kind of helps, don't it, to have actual nutrition. Actually, things that are good for you, you're eating. Yeah, so of course, we have the governor here, Patrick Morrissey, just made West Virginia the first state in the nation to make sweeping changes to clean up her food, defying the big food CEOs. Earlier this week, we took the first step to remove harmful dyes and additives from school nutritional programs and food items throughout the state. They hate this because they can't do universal production in manufacturing. When I was an engineer working at Navistar, they had a bus program to create buses, right? Each state had different laws. So it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare when you have states with different laws. Okay, so here you have a state saying no food dyes. So they're going to have to make an entirely separate production of food without food dyes. But see, if we need to help out these big food companies. We need to help them out. You know how you can help them out? Get every governor to, or at least lots of governors to do this. Why? Because they'll just say, okay, screw it. We're just going to get rid of these food dyes, period. We're just going to put natural in all our food across the country because they don't want to deal with one state doesn't have it, one state does. They don't want to deal with that. Okay? So that will solve the whole thing. So that's a good solution for that. Then you have, of course, I Show Speed is a YouTuber apparently going to China and interviewing some famous social media celebrities Ryan and Tony here. Tony's well known for his TikTok videos. Might look familiar. Let me show you his face. Tony is this guy right here. My name's Tony as well, but this guy makes all these funny social medias where he'll show like kind of like a woke dude saying some really weird stuff.
Did you know that Abraham Lincoln was weird? Anyways, these signs come with a 3 to...
That's crazy. Tony keeps getting better. What is? Oh no.
Yes.
Who's the real Trump?
So he's going to pretend to see which one's the better one that sounds like a president.
I think he likes me, so he's trying to mimic. Wait a minute, who likes you? Who likes you? He likes me. He likes you. You know, they have the rumors that say that one of us is the imposter. Yeah. I don't know who's the imposter, but I think I got Riz. So you got Riz. W in the chat for Ryan. W in the chat for Tony. Let's get the Riz. Well, you guys decide who's better. I basically invented Riz. Hey, I'm not gonna be biased. You're the referee, right? But Ryan got it, bro. I'm sorry. He like this.
Then we have this ridiculous stuff happening. Apparently, Paula White, who's supposed to be the faith advisor under our president, clearly a very bad pick, apparently is going to be giving out blessings from God over Passover if you gift her $1,000. I mean, oh my goodness. Are we still dealing with this kind of ridiculous garbage today? We are, apparently. What is up with these people doing this? I mean, don't ever give money to something like this, ever. It's like ridiculously bad. It's clearly not from God. This is not rocket science. God's not going to bless you with 7 supernatural blessings because you gave Paula White $1,000. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Ain't happening. This is just robbing the church. This is a Jezebel thing, my friends. This is basically what this is. It's the spirits. Let me show you this. This is actually my researcher created this little. And actually, by the way, my researcher makes these really awesome. I don't know if you call them articles or scripts or whatever you want to call them. And I'm going to be putting them on my website. This one's just amazing. Tying Lilith. Lamaster, you remember that whole thing? I did a video about Lady Gaga being on Saturday.
Okay, guys, I'm out in a sec.
Saturday Night Live, and she did a skit where they went and a lady lied about her having a birthday, and she was at some restaurant, not Applebee's, but kind of like an Applebee's or whatever, right? And she lied about her birthday, and then the devils came out and stuff, and it became very bizarre. It was supposed to be a comedy skit. And they mentioned in that skit Lamashtu, which is Lilith, by the way. It's all the same spirit, a false feminine. Some people in the church would probably just say Jezebel because I think